Welcome to Vigilant News Interviews. For our guest today, we have Chad Stewart. Chad is the author of the Britfield series. He's got a new book coming out, Britfield 4, and he's here to tell us all about it. Chad, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm very excited. Excited to be back on your show.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. I think the last time I had you on was, or the first time I had you on was, gosh, I think it was over a year ago at this point. So a lot's happened since then, for sure.
Yeah, worldwide and in the world of Britfield. I think what's fun and exciting about Britfield is, every week there are things that are happening and moving, and that's exciting for us. So, it's a lot of hard work, but it's exciting. So we're going from a soft launch for the last 5.5 years to a global launch now as of July, as we're speaking right now. So that's lots of updates and some cool stuff.
Fascinating. All right. Well, I want to set the stage for our audience because, your books have something special, which is that, you're a writer who's trying to obviously entertain, but in a lot of ways, I would say educate, infotain, if we want to use that term. And it's critical because we live in a world dominated by propaganda. And just to give you a sense of, and my audience, a sense of like how important it is for have good quality people writing good quality literature for our children. The powers that be discovered long ago, I would say probably as early as the Gutenberg press, although probably even before that they can use media itself, stories, as a way to propagandize people. They also believed, and I don't remember the name of the guy who said this, but it was something like, give me your child at the age of 7 and I'll have him for the rest of his life, something like that. So, this idea that propagandizing children, manipulating people's perception is as a way to manipulate them and to make them compliant or, mindless drones or house slaves, whatever term we want to use, is absolutely an established concept in mainstream and acknowledged history. And one of the ways they do that is through our media. I would argue our modern media, from TV to video games to child books to anime to obviously the internet, has been saturated with this effort for a long time. And I recently had on Courtney Turner, and she does a lot of early studies of the kind of early globalists from like 100 years ago, especially Tavistock. And we know for sure that our modern media was created and funded by globalists of yesteryear. So, it's critical to understand how much indoctrination happens through our media, through books, through TV shows. And that's also why it's critical to have good quality media like your book series, because in the modern age, we don't have this anymore, but we used to have woven communities where there was not just mommy and daddy around. It was mommy, daddy, aunt, uncle, grandpa, the next door neighbor, the 50 people at the church. And basically this idea of a village raising your kid was not just like a slogan, it was absolutely true. And it's what created some of the most bright minds in history that eventually beat the British in the 18th century. So what they did is they destroyed that through industrialization. So now you don't really get to raise your kid. The state raises your kid, and it uses the media to do it. There was a striking statistic that I discovered when I was running the Charles Whitfield charity, that I think it's like something like the average child has 30 minutes of engaging FaceTime with their parents, and they spend about 7 to 8 hours on media of various sorts, screen media usually. So just to set the stage about how critically important what you're doing is, I'm aspiring parent myself, and we're looking for quality media for our children because, everyone's got to face that challenge of how you're going to entertain your child, especially when you need a village and all you got is, if you're lucky, 2 people. So with that being said, tell us a little bit about the Britfield series and some of the impetus that got started.
Oh, yeah, great question. And yeah, we officially launched the Britfield series, or book 1, in August 2019, Britfield and Lost Crown. And that was based on literally, it took me 4 years and 2,500 hours just to produce book 1, 384 pages, and 10 years from concept to launching August 2019. And at the time, I was really thinking one book, but by the time I finished book 1, I was thinking we've got a series here, and now it's a 7-book series. And so I think what's so great about the series, why it's so engaging, not just nationally, but globally, is number one, it takes place in current time in real locations, like present day, right now. Book 1 is taking place in England, and that's where book 1 starts. And number 2, that I don't use any of the devices that's saturating the market, like witchcraft, demigods, superheroes, vampires, occultism, everything and anything but a real story, right? And that's done on purpose by what you had just said, by those in control of the media, 96% of it basically. But they're all going under. We can come back to that. They're all tumbling right now. Their models are crumbling underneath their feet, which is exciting. We're in a renaissance right now, and we're in a creative renaissance, which is cool. We're in an educational reformation also, and I think that's cool. But what's great about this book is, I mean, so they create those worlds, the Harry Potter, the Hunger Games. Are you kidding me? The Twilight. To do two things: disconnect kids from reality, and number two, make them feel less than they are. And if I could just be a superhero, if I just had magical powers, right? Because you can't relate to the characters, and you're not really going to learn anything from these books. And yet I think every child is amazing. Every child is born creative. Every child is born with talent, and every child is born with a purpose in this world. And so our books are sort of inspiring that. I mean, they're based in current time, real places. We don't use any of those devices. It's based on family, friendship, loyalty, courage, hope, and faith. And if you say, what's the one theme, one main theme that runs through all the books, I would say that it's family, the importance of family, what family means. As children are reading it, as adults are reading it, they're learning about geography, art, architecture, culture, and history. And we have maps in every book. And we're hitting the 4 C's. This is very critical. We're hitting communication, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration. That's sort of interwoven, we call it stealth education. It's interwoven through the books, where you present your characters with certain problems, and they're discussing it, and they're working it out, and they're trying certain things. Sometimes they fail and they learn from their mistakes. Sometimes they collaborate and get other people's help. It's pulling on everyone's strengths, strengthening their weaknesses. All of this stuff is in Britfield and Lost Crown, which is this fast-paced, high-octane Narnia meets James Bond meets The Bourne Identity. So
that's great. Yeah.
Fast-paced series that kids love. I mean, our youngest reader's 7, our oldest reader's 93. 55% of our audience are adults. And so what we've done with the Britfield series is really, in many ways, we're just raising the bar of literature back to sort of the classics, if you will. I mean, I grew up with I love Dickens and David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, Great Expectations. That's the closest thing that I would say, because it was based in a sense of reality, current time, real issues, based on real people, real events. I was thinking about, when you were talking with your intro, I was thinking about Little Women. I mean, what a classic! It's still in print, still being sold, and it's just a heartfelt story. And I've been there. I mean, I lived in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Every 4th of July, I would go over to Concord, Massachusetts. But I love driving by the Alcott House. It's still there. You can walk to the 3rd story. There's the desk that Little Women was created on in, I think, 8 weeks, if you can imagine. She just got into a zone and wrote about what she knew. So that's kind of what the Britfield series is all about. And book 1 takes place in England. We launched book 2, July 2021. Takes place in France, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, 484 pages. And then September 2022, we launched book 3, Britfield and the Return of the Prince, and that's 575 pages. Takes place in Italy, with the main scenes being Florence, Rome, and Venice. And now we're getting ready to launch book 4, Britfield and the Eastern Empire. Starts in Vienna, ends in Moscow, Russia. And in book 4, we include 10 countries. And so really what we've got is this fast-paced, high-octane, real-life story. I mean, I do tons of research. I mean, just like for book 4, I'm pulling up, like, it starts in Vienna in April. So I'm like, how cold is it in April in Vienna? How long does the snow last? What are the temperatures? Right. What kind of flowers grow in Vienna? How long would it take a train ride from Vienna to Bratislava? Or from Bratislava to Krakow or Poland, that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm making it as authentic and real as possible. I'm not drowning it out with details. I'm just making it authentic and real. I don't suspend reality like some of these other books do. Some of it's just lazy writing, and so it's exciting. And so really, what you have is a future 7-book series. Book 5 will be in Asia. Book 6 will be in South America. Book 7 will come back to the United States. And so it covers the world. And as kids are reading it, students are reading it, adults are reading it, they're learning about all these different subjects. And what's nice, based on your show, is we bring in a lot of the current events that are happening right now, because it works with the narrative. You sort of have Britfield and the Lost Crown. So it's this idea of this royalty, lost royalty, Britfield, lost royalty. And our main character, Tom, in book 1, he's 12, book 2, he's 13, book 3, he's 14. And somehow Tom, who's an orphan his whole life, is somehow connected to Britfield. And Britfield is the actual real royal line of the British monarchy. And it was usurped, since the 1200s. and then taken over by like the Tudors, and then the Stewarts, and then finally the Windsor dynasty. And because they didn't like the Britfields, because the Britfields represented, God-based principles. They wanted to give back to the public, not steal from them. It was they're the kind of purest form of government, if you will, and those in control couldn't have it. And so that lent itself into the fact that suddenly they're resurfacing current time. Britfields are still alive. You're kidding me? And this group called the Committee, and you'll relate to that, the Committee of 300, right? Tavistock Institute. The Committee of 300 are the ones that are kind of behind the scenes. They're the great puppet masters that manipulate, everything. They start wars. They created the false banking system. And so this stuff is literally in book 2, book 3, book 4, and interwoven throughout it. That's very current. And I remember when book 2 came out in 21, people were saying, "What are you, prophetic?" Because it was like so spot on with what was happening right now in real life. And it's because it's like, I pulled the curtain. You pulled the curtain. We've read their manifestos. We've done deep dives, research into who they are, what their goal is, and until they're, if you will, exterminated, they'll never stop. So,
right. Yeah, it's really poignant that your series covers so much, and just from like as the things you mentioned, there's so many layers to it. I think really hit at the core of the problem. And without getting too deep into the nuance of the psychology and the context, I want to focus a little bit on the story. So it sounds like this isn't just like a, excuse me, you're not just making up a bunch of stuff. You're kind of like trying to weave in as much history as you can. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's almost like a funny thing happened when I was trying to get to. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like Tom and Sarah have been stuck at Weatherly Orphanage, for Sarah's been there for 2 years, Tom's been there for 6. This is the year they're going to escape, and their goal is really just to get to London, the greatest city in the world. What kid wouldn't want to get to London? And so it starts out with that sort of simple, a goal. And I think that's always kind of a theme within each new book. It's not this massive goal, but things happen along the way, and so that's kind of how we sort of set it out, and we sort of layer it. But nothing's forced. Everything that I just talked about, it's natural. It fits because there is something behind the scenes that's trying to, eliminate Tom and find the Britfields. And we introduced this group called the Resistance in France in book 2. It's so cool. And they've kind of been in charge of protecting the Britfields all these years and stuff, and doing stuff behind the scenes, kind of like what you guys are doing. You know what I mean? Like getting the truth out and exposing the lies and exposing the fraud. And Tom kind of gets introduced to that group and stuff. So everything, these narratives just fit in what's happening. And I think like in book 3, we introduced this sort of crisis where in Venice, there's a committee, company, electronics company. And what they're doing is they're collecting, social media was created for one thing and one thing only. It wasn't to connect us, wasn't to make us happy, wasn't so we could share and reconnect with people. It was to gather all our information, as you well know, and know everything about every single individual. And we did it voluntarily. It was, and the little Facebook guy, it's just like, I don't think so. I can't even spell his name. That was a $500 million DARPA project, with years of research, our tax money that went into creating this social media database. And then the day that they ended it, Facebook was launched, which of course and we cover some of this stuff lightly, but we talk about the dangers of it and how they, in book 3, they've created a D-Wave quantum computer system in Switzerland to collect all the database. And then what they want to do is they want to introduce a social credit scoring, which was what they're already doing in China. And then in book 4, which is kind of fun, we talk a lot about quantum mechanics and quantum encryption, but AI and the dangers of AI. What is AI? How does it work? And what's the end goal of it? And it's not good. And so it's like we don't highlight it and treat it as if it's something good. And then what they're trying to do in book 4 is they're trying to crash the stock market, manipulate the stock market, crash it, wipe out trillions of dollars of wealth, buy all the stocks for pennies on the dollar. Everyone's broke. And then what they'll do is they'll introduce a one world digital currency. Does that sound familiar?
Wow.
So that's the theme in book 4.
All right. Well, we must be talking about something they don't want to hear because we keep having internet issues. So that's a good sign, I guess, in a way that, speaks to your book. So, I was curious, you've obviously put a lot of time and energy into not only this project, but understanding the greater context of the world that we're living in right now. And how important do you think it is for what you're trying to do? And have you seen anyone else do what you're trying to do when it comes to good media for children? We here at Vigilant News want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to gain freedom and deal a blow to the powers that be. One of the things that the powers that be do is they wage biological, psychological, and spiritual war on us. And there's a whole bunch of very important things that we need to do to defend ourselves from each of those types of war and build up our strength, our resources, and our unity so that we can actually make decisive blows against the enemy and not each other. One of the things that's important to do for that is health. And that's why Vigilant News partnered up with Ascent Nutrition, who's really the leading, as far as I can tell in my research, the leading nutritional company out there. Humic and fulvic acid. Humic and fulvic acid helps absorb or chelates heavy metals. So chelation is the process where heavy metals get like magnetically sucked out of our body. And it turns out, if anybody's not aware of this, a lot of vaccines have tons of heavy metals in it. We have heavy metals like strontium and various other heavy metals being sprayed in from the atmosphere via geoengineering, which, thanks to the recent Tennessee bill that was just passed, is finally being acknowledged. So we've been, all this global warming nonsense is probably just from the geoengineering that we've been dealing with. But it's more than that. It's bioengineering. They're literally changing the face of the earth through terraforming, and part of it involves heavy metals, where you can help guard against these heavy metals with humic and fulvic acid. They'll help strip it from the body. Ours in particular is in a hyper bioavailable form. Even though we have to put an expiration date on there, it technically doesn't expire because the compound is literally millions of years old, but the FDA makes us do stupid stuff, for their own reasons, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you. The other thing about our humic and fulvic acid is it's tiny. It literally fits in a nano-sized amount or dosage, in the sense that, to use a fancy buzzword, it's tinier than most humic and fulvic, so it can get into those hard-to-reach places in your bodies. That also helps break down pesticides. It actually has been shown to help break down radiation. So if Fukushima is, scaring you, this is something that can help, or the radiation from these things, portable radiation devices that we carry around with us all over the place. It can help with that. It can also help with microplastics as well. Feeling that I get in my respiratory, especially my sinus tract. And it was like that, but it was like 10 times more irritating. It was really strange. And then I didn't have any of the other symptoms that I normally get. It's like I sniffed glass all night long. And I'm not talking about the drug. I'm talking about like the actual ground up glass. So when I got back from the flight, I started to feel it. The last day I was there, I got home from the flight. I was experiencing this peak, itchy, irritated feeling. I took some of that Agaricon, I put it in a little water, I let it sit for 10, 15 minutes to get absorbed in the water, and I gargled it for 5 minutes. I gargled that stuff, and it literally froze whatever I was experiencing in its tracks. And for the next 3 or 4 days, I still had this weird, thing that was happening that, again, felt like no other sickness I've ever experienced before. Very similar to COVID, by the way, when I was sick with COVID in 2021. But this stuff froze it in its tracks. I'd strongly suggest getting this stuff too. Again, studied by the Department of Defense. There are dozens of other amazing products here. These are just some of the ones that they have available. It's all sorts of different things here. So I strongly suggest you use promo code Justin Stillness, and you can save 10% off. You can also save when you do a subscription. The subscription will not only give you points and that you can use and get free products down the line, but you can also save 10% every time that subscription goes out, and you get free shipping. So it's just like Amazon. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for supporting your health, supporting your mind, and staying on the digital battlefield. Let's get back to the interview.
And great question, really. And I'm sure there's some good content out there. It's just it's hard to find, and it's hard to discern. And everyone's kind of hooked their wagon to witchcraft, which I don't think is really good in any sense of the word, and it's funny too, because you have the Potter scenario where it's good witches versus bad witches, and in reality all witches are bad. So I'm not too sure what's out there. I know there's some good content, there's some good series, because there's no competition for us, meaning once someone's done reading Britfield and Lost Crown, they need to go on to something else that's good. And so I hope that we're encouraging writers out there that you don't need to compromise your writing or your style to hook your wagon with this nonsense, because it isn't popular. It's not what people really want. It's just they're not being given a choice. You know what I mean? When everything at the movie theater, everything on television, everything at Barnes and Noble is this heightened fantasy and witchcraft and basic crap, it's kind of tough. And I know I hear it all the time from parents. It's so hard to discern and find. And I think what's great about us is not just going from national to global, but it's word of mouth. You know what I mean? And there's nothing more golden than word of mouth. A parent reads it, or they see their son engaged, in a Britfield Lost Crown book, and they don't put it down, or they read it in 5 hours and they devour book 2. And it's great too, because I get little videos every now and then from sort of parents, and they're like, I got my daughter book 2 or book 3 for her birthday, and they have like all these presents and this big party, and she gets the book and she takes off to go read it. It's just it's really cool to see that sort of impact that we're having on kids. And I think the thing is we're feeding their soul. We're writing really good, wholesome, edifying content with no agenda, if that makes sense. We're not trying to push some nefarious idea or twist something or destroy the family or family values or this whole natural landscape. You know what I mean? And that's what the enemy does. It's to destroy, divide and conquer, destroy, lower our standards every day, just a little bit. Little nudity on television now, profanity word on television now. And then also 2 words, and then a little bit longer nudity. And don't get married. It's okay. You just sleep whoever you want. Well, as long as you like them and stuff. And it's just they've been doing this for a long time. You mentioned it. Going back 100 years, and it goes back farther than that, of course. Hollywood is nefarious. It's like they control the narrative. You got a global system in place. And it's really, it's like, I'll have some of the 30s and the 40s films, you get into the 50s, and then like 60s, you start going off the reservation. The 70s was horrific, really, if you're honest. And you had these sketchy, cool, Scorsese, Taxi Driver, and it's shite. It's absolute shite. I'm sorry. All this stuff is crap. And the stuff that these great directors are putting out there, it's crap. It's designed to be crap. It's divided to shock your senses. Midnight Cowboy? Are you kidding me? What a disgusting, vile film. Yeah, let's take up 2 hours and of time and watch that vile story and film. And so they've been doing this for a long time. And so we're fighting the good fight, and we've built our own infrastructure. We're going global. We just launched in Britain 3 weeks ago, which is awesome. So we're literally rolling across Britain right now with the Britfield series, the trilogy. And I'll be over there in September for a 4 weeks school tour and creativity tour and book tour. That'll be fun. We'll be at the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. And then we've got a 8-week Eastern European tour planned, starting with Poland, and then Asia, South America. So we've got like an 18-month global book tour. Part of this is going to be paralleling and based on the movie. Actually, since we last talked, but here's the finished draft, 3rd draft.
Oh, you're working on a movie. Great.
Polished. This is done. This is a polished final draft of the Britfield Lost Crown movie. It went from 168 pages to 148 pages, 2 hours and 15-minute movie. Took 15 months to create and write the script. Hired a professional script writer, industry background. I had to take over by the 3rd draft, clean it up, get it more back on track and stuff. So a lot of work, but that's exciting. I mean, we're moving into pre-production for the first of 7 major motion pictures in about 4 to 6 weeks, and should be filming in England next year. So that's exciting. So it's a big endeavor. So it's not just the book series. What's great about book 1 is we have an 83-page study guide based on academic standards. It's designed to be taught in the classroom on top of everything, so it's like, and we're already in hundreds of schools. Teachers are already teaching Britfield Lost Crown every semester. And it's so great. I mean, it's such a great book, because it's like, what else can you teach? And I love like C.S. Lewis, but are you going to teach Narnia? There's principles in it, but it's heightened fantasy and witchcraft. And Tolkien, one of the greats, Lord of the Rings, but it's like, man, that's pretty dark stuff. It's like, like wow, that's like, wow, that's like really dark stuff. And so it's like the Britfield Lost Crown, and it's just like, it's based on family, and then it's like all these great locations and all this architecture and culture and history in every single book. And we don't even have a study guide for book 2 yet, but some schools are teaching book 2, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, in the classroom, buying bulk, and then giving it to all the kids to teach it and to talk about it. And I think it's just that's wonderful. Like, that's sort of the end game. Our goal is to be in every school in the United States in the next 8 to 10 years. It's about 120,000 schools, middle school and elementaries and stuff. So that's one of our goals, and we're just rolling it out. We developed a theatrical play, which I think I told you, based on book 1. So it's a 90-minute 2-act theatrical play, 87 pages, specifically for elementary and middle schools to teach, to put on. So you could actually put Britfield and Lost Crown on your stage, in your theater club, theater group, wherever. You can even do it in a library, and you can even do it as a read through, as fun. We have director's script, we have actor's script, we have director's notes. We walk you through every single scene. We use the entire stage. We have 28 sound effects, 54 digital slides that you can project on the back screen. It's all like aligned with the scenes. Wow. So when you hit the sound effect and you just download everything, it's like boom, and you just created England and a real life story based on family and friendship right there in the classroom, right there in the theater group, or young adult theater. So it's great for high schools too. So I mean, these are some of the things that we're doing. So it's not just sort of a book. We've always said it's more than a book. It's a movement, and it's a movement in literacy, literature, education, creativity, films, and media. So.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm really impressed with how far it's expanded and how well received it's been. I'm assuming that you haven't had that much backlash, or have you had any backlash from the leftist media or anything like that?
We haven't really, but it's just like they have nothing to do with us, and we have nothing to do with them, if that makes sense. I'm not seeking them. I'm not seeking their anything they do, and I think and we don't need their permission. And I want to tell it to your audience. You don't need anyone's permission to go do great things, to educate your kids, to homeschool your kids, to write a great book, to write a great story, to write a great song, to write on a great play or narrative or movie. You know what I mean? It's hard work like anything, and nothing is going to come easy, period. And so this flashover substance you see with these overnight successes, that's all lies. There are no overnight successes.
All right, you were telling us about your movie and some of the other successes you had. Can you got any more thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, we're really excited about the film. It's about over 2 years in development, and it does take a lot of time. A movie is like starting a company. I mean, it's huge, and it's probably will be within a budget of about $40 to $50 million, which by Hollywood standards, we've got a $120 million movie. It'll be done independently outside of Hollywood, but with all the same caliber, key directors, award-winning cinematographers, everything, just not with Hollywood's influence, So, and I've known that from day one, although we have a major distributor that's lined up for the film. And they're good, and they've come a long way, and they've been working with a lot of good films and good conservative films without giving anything away. So we're excited about that. I think things will be shifting within the next 4 to 6 weeks. You probably should start to see some things coming out in the mainstream media and just press releases, things like that. And that'll be a big tipping point for us, because the movie's going to be big and it's going to be exciting. I think the timing for it is perfect. I think the audience is starving for it. I think it's a transformational film and movie, much like what Star Wars was, like The Sound of Music. That's the 4th highest grossing film in cinematic history based on adjusting for inflation. Star Wars, 4th highest domestic grossing film in history, and those were Titanic moments. And even Titanic was like one of the highest grossing films. And I think that's what Britfield will be done, because Hollywood isn't doing it. They can't do it because it's against their agenda. Their very existence is to put out this crap and to compromise your morals and to divide the family and to portray false narratives. That's it. That's the whole reason they exist. Every now and then, a blind side will sneak out almost accidentally. And that's what I've really come I'm a big Hollywood fan or movie fan. Forget Hollywood. The art of filmmaking is fantastic, right? And that's what we need to re-engage with. Great storytelling, great cinematography, good stuff, wholesome. But anyway, in 30s and 40s and all of it. I mean, Casablanca, classic movie, should have never worked. They were still writing it as they're halfway filming it. There's all these great stories behind the scenes. Dead Poets Society, one of my favorite. Robin Williams, classic. Wasn't designed to do that, and in fact, the writer of the novel was upset, and it was really to make this John Keating more of a villain instead of an inspiration. You know what I mean? So it's like it accidentally succeeded and a good story escaped. The Blind Side. $30 million movie, $300 million worldwide. So I've come to the conclusion, and I'm not saying everyone in Hollywood's bad. Of course not. 95% of them are just trying to make a living. But it's the demons on top that control the narrative, that control the story, And Hollywood's bankrupt. They've been bankrupt for years. You can't keep losing $200 to $300 million on a movie and succeed. Are you kidding me? There isn't a model in the world that survived. That's what China is right now. China's bankrupt. Ooh, the big sleeping rising giant. They're not a giant. They're fake. They're like a hot air balloon filled with air. So anyway, I digress. But we're excited about the movie, and I say that to inspire everyone. I mean, we are in a renaissance. We are in a creative renaissance right now. We are in a great awakening. I think nationally and globally, people have never been more awake in the history of humanity than they are right now. Not completely, but things are starting to crack. Things are starting to leak, and they're starting to question things for the first time. That's an exciting time to be alive. And this is the time of the creative, and for us to control it. There's devices now with like the internet and technology. It's just like you go out and you get a red camera and you can go shoot a short film or a story or a movie. And it's just like, it's CGI, and I'm not a big CGI fan per se, but I'm saying there's things that you can do where, you don't need the big budget. You don't need Hollywood. Just make a great movie, great film. 5 friends getting together during the fall up in Maine at this house, and they haven't seen each other. I mean, that's a great story. That's interesting, intriguing. Enter late, leave early, start on the action, end on the action, tight dialogue. I mean, there's so many great narratives, so many great stories, so much talent, so many great actors out there that are ready for this renaissance, and it's coming, and we're excited, and we're part of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you said. I think, man, there's so much I want to touch on, but I don't want to kill the interview again, but because the internet's so bad. But I'll just mention a couple of things. It seems like we're having a good run right here. So, I mean, You're dead right about Hollywood. It's been bankrupt, and I think that's one of the signatures you can tell when you're dealing with a globalist hand reached into an industry, is that the bankers are behind them dumping money in their laps, no matter what they do. And the fact that they keep getting bailed out, just like the banking system, indicates that this is being used in some malevolent way. And I think, what your film likely is going to do, what Sound of Freedom is likely did do, I should say, is really showing that there's a hunger for real content and real substance in stories, which we haven't had for this whole time, arguably. So, I wanted to ask you what the last question.
Sound of Freedom.
Go ahead.
Sound of Freedom, $15 million budget. Over $250 million at the box office. Wow, that knocked it out of the park.
Yep.
That's incredible. Go ahead.
Yeah, 100%, exactly. So, we just had Trump recently get assassinated, not even a week ago, and I think that is, people are calling it the shot heard around the world, and I think it's more than just indicating various white hat operations, things like that. Not to touch too much on that, but just to speak to what you said, I think there is like a sea change, a tide that is changing and shifting direction. And I think this film will capture that, and the series clearly has. So you must be really excited given everything that's happening, and any comments you have on recent events.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because Hollywood's bankrupt. The publishing industry is crumbling underneath our feet. I literally talked to my literary agent this morning. She lives in France, which is pretty cool. We were talking about U.S. distribution for the series. We're just about to lock in India for the Britfield series. I learned that today. Wow, it's just like, that's huge. I mean, that's been on my radar for a long time. We're also going to be locking in South Korea and Japan. That's huge for the Britfield series. That means that we sell the rights to the big publisher there. They translate it into the language. So we are literally rolling out globally, and so that's exciting. But it's an interesting time, to touch on that. And I've said this before on programs. It's an exciting and amazing time. You've never had more conservatives or Christians stepping up and running for office, whether it's local government or a mayor or a senator. I met a lot of them. I just got back from Florida. We were on a 9-day Britfield tour and capital raise and fundraising tour. And I was meeting a lot of these, major players, people that are very connected to Palm Beach, and Mar-a-Lago and that whole thing. And they're people that never have run for office, and they're stepping up now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's exciting. Thousands. And these are all the positions that have just sat there dormant. The Democrats come in. The Democrats they're not even a party anymore at all. Right. They represent nothing. They are crumbled. And it's like, oh, we're a divided nation. And you see all these fake statistics. And it's like, well, if so-and-so were to run today against this person, false, fake. Oh my gosh, there's lies. And then there's lies that are like, oh my gosh, the Democratic Party does not exist anymore. And the population in the United States that might be stupid enough and brainwashed enough to vote for him is probably about 12%, and that's it. And I mean, that's it. The rest of people, I mean, even Democrats are saying, I don't think so. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, there's no one's that stupid. And so, so it's an exciting time. You got thousands of mothers that are coming out and challenging the school boards. You know, I'm connected with a lot of these people. There's things that are happening in Arizona. That's a crime state, and they're challenging this filth that's coming into the libraries and into the schools. Actually, they'll go into a library and then call the police, because what you have is you have literally pornography in the children's section. You know, so and they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of frankly angry moms. You know what I mean? And so it's happening. And I mean, it is an awakening. There is a reckoning coming, the likes this world has never seen, for those that have been involved in this. And there will be nowhere, and I mean nowhere, that you will hide. And there will be we don't want to get people out of office. Who cares about that? They're done. You know what I mean? If they go to jail and prison for the rest of their lives, they will consider themselves blessed and lucky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Well, listen, I'm so glad we got a chance to catch up. It sounds like you're at the right at the moment, a peak of something really beautiful about to happen. And I'm really looking forward to going through the material myself for my own family projects here soon, as we were talking about off air. So where can people go to stay up to date? Your social media, website, anything you want to mention?
Sure. Yeah, and thanks a lot. I really appreciate you coming back on your show. Your show's great, and really like you and your style and the things you cover and your insight. And what a blessing for me to be able to share in this July, you know, this launch of Britfield. So it's very exciting. So our website's the best place, Britfield.com, award-winning website. Great place to buy, you know, the books, 2 books combo, the trilogy. We've got posters. We've got the play. I mean, I really encourage you, if you're a school teacher, homeschooler, you know, with a group, I mean, license and download the theatrical play and put it on. I mean, it's fantastic. It's like clean content and educational content, but it's a great way to support us, and we appreciate it. And Britfield really honestly makes a wonderful gift. It's a great summer read. It's great for kids, for grandkids, even for adults. And a lot of our orders, most of our orders that come through are repeat orders. And it's a family that's ordering it for someone else. And it's really cool. I see someone like in Oregon and they're ordering for someone in Boston. You know what I mean? For this person to buy. And I love that. And they order the trilogy, all 3 books and stuff. So, you know, spread the word, and we need your support, and just let people know about Britfield. You know, get the word out there.
Excellent. All right. Chad Stewart, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's an honor.